Thank you so much for coming out on this really cold morning. I'm Betty Elston. I'm the Director of External Support for the Graduate School, and I run Grant Search for grad students, about which you'll hear more in a couple of moments. Hopefully you've met my assistants, Julia and Julie. And we'll have a little discussion. You can hit the next slide. The agenda for this morning. The first part of the workshop will be focusing on grant writing, but a little bit about planning in general. We'll have a panel and Q&A, and then a nice break, maybe 10 minutes or so everybody can get up, stretch a little bit. And then the Center for Teaching and Faculty Development will take over and can discuss developing your teaching techniques and portfolio. Okay. So if there's one thing we would like you to take away from this morning's presentation, it is the importance of planning. It's the importance of taking charge of your grad student career and thinking of this as part of your career. So your department will give you benchmarks and requirements that they want you to hit. Can you turn them off, please? Thanks. But there are lots of other factors that go into your success, both as a student and in your career following your time here. So at the graduate school, we're concerned both with your success here and with your success after you leave. So we'd like to talk to you about making sure that you're being proactive, that you're looking ahead both at academic careers, if that's what you're thinking about, alternative academic careers, which are not necessarily involved in the professoriate, but in administration, and also considering non-academic careers as well. We're trying to broaden everything out and really give you alternatives, things to think about in terms of your future. And to think in terms of both long and short-range goals. So some of your short-range goals might be getting through your classes, getting your papers in on time, getting student papers graded, getting sleep, getting your laundry done. Those are great. But we also need you to be thinking about your career in the graduate school as a long arc. So looking at the end, what are you going to need when you leave? What skills will you need to have acquired? And making sure that step by step as you go, you're making plans to acquire those skills. So even if you're brand new right now, you're either coming in. Can I see hands of anybody who's just starting now in January? Okay, so we do have a few people. Most of you have been here since September, so you're not quite like a deer in the headlights anymore. You got through your first semester, which, yay, congratulations. But you're realizing what a commitment this is of time and energy. And even though this feels like it's just adding more to your plate, these are very, very important things for you to be considering as you go through your grad student career. So things like networking, making sure that you make contacts in the faculty, even outside your department, making sure that you're making contacts with your peers, with peers who are slightly ahead of you in their progress. When you go out and start on the academic career search or the non-academic job search, you may use those people as contacts. And I don't mean use in the bad sense, but making those connections, you just never know who's going to find themselves where and where they might be able to be a great contact for you. So networking is hugely important. Knowing how to present your work, knowing how to present your work well in speaking and writing, concisely for all different kinds of audiences, knowing about the different kinds of writing, getting that teaching experience. So all of these are things that your department may or may not be helpful with. And so it's up to you to be paying attention to what are the skills that are really, really valuable for employers and what is going to look great when you get out there and you've got them on your CV. You've got a certificate in grant writing. You've got a great teaching portfolio. You've got things that you can come and show. You didn't just go through the motions when you're here and sort of hit the required benchmarks, but you went farther. And that's what people are looking for, committees, hiring committees and employers when they interview you. They want to see someone who's been proactive, and so now is the time to start that. If you're a student who has been out in the job market for a while and you're returning to school, these are probably things that you know, but there are other situations where you've just come out of your undergrad, or you've only been out for a couple of years, and you may kind of need to focus and realize that these are very, very important skills to require. And so we stuck grant writing at the bottom there because I'm here to talk to you about grant writing. Thanks. So grant and fellowship support. I put this slide up to say, here's what it's not. Because a lot of times people hear the word grant and they think, oh, I'll just get a grant to do X, Y, and Z. We're talking about external grants. We're not talking about grants that are sponsored by UMass. But they are not for general living support. And that's something we really need to impress upon you. If, heaven forbid, your funding should disappear out of nowhere, and you find yourself looking and trying to figure out how you're going to pay your rent and eat, trying to find an external grant is really, really not your way to go. So this is a little what I call Funding 411. These are different kinds of funding that you can look at, getting an assistantship, getting loans and work study, and also the special information for international students. These are all things that you should investigate if by chance you should find yourself in the position of needing to figure out alternate ways of funding your time here. So then what are external grants and fellowships? They are competitive. They are put forward by different kinds of funders. I'll discuss what those are in a minute. And they are competitive. You apply. There's a deadline, usually one a year, sometimes twice a year. They're not awarded by UMass. There are some differences between grants and fellowships, but to be honest, sometimes those terms are used kind of loosely. And so I'm not going to read through the whole slide for you, but just to say you can look at this and see that there are a number of different kinds of grants and fellowships and internships, residencies out there. And it's very helpful to know what is relevant to your field of study. In some fields, you may be under faculty funding, especially in the STEM fields. And this is not quite as big a concern for you, but it will be a concern for you going forward. And so it's very important that you learn how to do these applications. Even though it's great to be funded under a faculty member, it's even greater to have on your CV that you actually won, for example, on National Science Foundation funding. Really, really makes you stand out. And a couple of our panelists can speak to that in a few minutes. Funding also goes by what stage you're at. So right now you're at very early stage. There aren't that many fellowships and grants for you out there. But the reason we're talking to you about this now is because we really want to help you think ahead. What are the stages that you're going to be in as you go through your degree, and what funding is out there for each of those stages? And this slide goes through that just a little bit. Again, you can read through it a little bit more. Some of these are more relevant to people in the social sciences and the humanities than in the STEM fields, but the STEM fields, these do hold true to some extent as well. Can I have a show of hands, STEM people, science, technology, engineering, and math? Great, lots of STEM people. Humanities people? Yay. And social sciences people. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, next. This is just a list of who provides funding, just to give you, again, a sense of where you can start very slowly looking for funding. You'll have our contact information in here, and we'll explain more in our workshops that are coming up. How you go about looking for funding, but just to be aware, when you're in your department, you're talking with other students, you're hearing from faculty, you can kind of start keying into hearing, oh, somebody got a National Science Foundation fellowship, somebody got funding from the National Institute for the Humanities. And you hear about these sources, and it's really, really important to be aware of where the funding is coming from, because down the road, you're going to start looking at what kind of research are you doing, and that is going to depend very much on what these funders want to fund. So it's a little bit kind of goal run in terms of what you're going to work on. As we say, there are sexy topics out there, and they do get funded more frequently than topics that are just of interest to one or two people. It's difficult reality, but it's true. And it's just true in general in the working world, even outside of academia and the sciences, that sometimes you just have to go with where the money is. So let's say that we're running a grant writing workshop and you're thinking, well, I'm not really eligible at this stage. I don't think I have a chance of getting one. Why should I bother? And it's true that it's great to win financial support. It's very prestigious. And all of that is great. But it's also an incredible exercise in helping you learn to present your research concisely and for broad audiences. Speaking of, for example, the National Science Foundation, they really like to see that you know how to talk about what you're working on to a broad audience of non-specialists, as well as to people in your field who know what you're working on. This is actually very, very important, and it's something that's growing in importance. So knowing that you can explain what your topic is without really resorting to all of the technical language and the jargon is really, really, really important, and grant writing is a fantastic way to learn how to do that. Presenting, it's also practice in presenting. We work on that somewhat in our workshops. And it's also something that you can present about yourself when you go on the job search. If you've at least applied, if you know what grant funding cycles are about, if you can say, well, yes, I worked on a National Science Foundation grant, that really, really impresses committees and employers. So it's valuable, even if you think you don't have a chance. And I know we have at least one panelist coming up who did not think she had any chance in the world of getting funded, and she did get funded. So there are amazing success stories out there. Yes, I've already spoken about this. One thing you can do is start looking at what kind of fellowships and grants are available in your particular field. Again, we can help you with that. You can also look on our blog. There are instructions about how to start going about doing that. But definitely talk to people in your department. Talk to your GPD. Ask them to have a little brown bag session. What are the fellowships and grants available to you as you go along? And that will really, really help you to be prepared. You will have to apply possibly a year or more in advance of when the money will actually come through. So you have to figure when you're going to need that money, and you're very early here. So granted, you're probably not going to know that right now, but just so you come away from this workshop knowing that down the road you are going to be thinking about this, and so it'll help you. Just a plan on planning. So yikes, yeah, there's a lot to know. So you can contact Grant Search. We do individual student consultations at any stage you're at. So here you are in your first year. I've had students come in. They have an amazing grid set up with what are the fellowships they should be thinking about, what are the deadlines. The deadlines do tend to fall in about the same month of the year, year after year. So you can know, this fellowship comes due, the application comes due in late November. So when it comes to when you're going to have to start writing your proposal, we recommend at least 6 to 9 months in advance to start writing up a proposal. You can time it backwards. If you want more than one fellowship, if you're looking to apply in the same year, then you need to be able to time how much writing you are going to have to do and how much you're going to have to craft each proposal so that it's an individual and focused proposal. So again, I'm really trying to hit very hard this morning that this is a matter of thinking ahead and really, really planning for your own progress. So here are some resources on campus. I promised that I would make this fairly short. So our blog, Facebook page, and Twitter are all available to you. I apologize in advance for this thing called Virtual PhD, which doesn't exist. It's called Versatile PhD. So please correct that in your printout. The Institute for Social Science Research is not just for social sciences. We're going to be partnering with them on workshops. They're really great on research methodology and NSF workshops, among others. And the Office of National Scholarship Advisement, which helps people with certain major funders. If you go to their website, they have a list on there of which funders they work with specifically, and they're very, very good in guiding people and prepping toward those fellowships. So that's my chat. While I have the panelists for this session, please come up to the front and take seats. I'll take questions.